Hey everyone, welcome to another Reality Skewed Gamers tutorial. My name is Finity and this video is going to be based on Heroic AAT Phase 3 using a Teebotine attack but without TIE Fighter Pilot. TIE Fighter Pilot kind of changes the mechanics of how you're going to fight. He's not a character that everyone has right now, so I wanted to do a video more focused on maybe if you don't have Chirpa and you can't do Chirpatine, how you can kind of adapt. And Teebotine is one that I know a lot of people use. So I wanted to do a video on that and kind of just go over the basics of why the attack works, what you're looking to get, and how to kind of do the attack. So starting off, looking at the abilities that makes Teebotine effective. The first one is going to be Teebo's leader ability. So in the Teebotine attack, your leader is going to be Teebo. Now, the reason Teebo is going to be your leader is because the first ability that you get is a 55% chance to gain stealth for a turn at the beginning of each ally's turn. The second part is a 50% chance to gain 25% turn meter at the end of their turns. Now, I'll explain the second part as I go a little bit more into Emperor Palpatine. But for the first one, which is the stealth gain is really critical because if you look at the bottom, you'll see that I put the B2 Rocket Trooper's ability as well. And this is his unique ability where he has a 35% counter chance and gains 25% turn meter whenever he counters. So if a character is stealthed and attacks a character with counterattack, stealth negates the counterattack. So if now Emperor Palpatine, who's going to be your primary attacker in this attack method, if he is stealthed and attacks the B2 Rocket Trooper, not only is there a 35% chance of countering, but there's a 55% chance, assuming you have Teebo's lead ability maxed out, which I would recommend that you do, he has a 55% chance of being stealthed, which means now his effective counter rate is close to about 15%. So that's why Teebo's lead is important, because you reduce the number of counter chances. The second part is also important, which is a 50% chance to gain 25% turn meter at the end of the turn. This goes along with Emperor Palpatine's basic ability, the Lightning Strike. So on the Lightning Strike, it deals special damage and adds a shock to targets and gains 15% turn meter for each shock target. Now you won't be able to apply a shock onto the Rocket Trooper, but here is where you can apply a shock. So here is a screenshot just from one of my attacks, and I'm just pointing out each of the little small droids, whether it's the 3 B1 droids or the other 3 B1 commander droids, they each have a shock on it. Each of their shocks will provide 15% turn meter, and so if you do 6 times 15, every time Emperor Palpatine uses his basic attack and you have these 6 shocks up, you can attack the B2 Rocket Trooper. And even though you don't apply a shock to the B2 Rocket Trooper, because there are 6 other shocks up, Emperor Palpatine will gain 90% turn meter. So, let's go back to the abilities now. If you look at the abilities, then you add Teebo's chance of a 50% chance to gain 25% turn meter at the end of your turn, which means that you have 90% turn meter gain when you get this kind of rolling along and Emperor Palpatine has his shock, and you have all the shocks up. You're getting 90% each time, and you have a 50% chance to gain 25% turn meter at the end of your turn, which is essentially a 50% chance to get full turn meter, because obviously 90 plus 25 is 115, which is more than 100%. So you have a little bit of an extra chance there, but this is what provides you that opportunity. You have a 50% chance. Essentially, every time you attack with Emperor Palpatine and you have the other shocks up in order to get full turn meter. So those two abilities of Teebo's lead ability are why Teebotine will work. Again, it's a little bit RNG based on this. RNG stands for random number generator. It describes kind of how the coding works in a program. Because there are so many variables, usually there's a random number generated, and that determines whether or not an ability happens or doesn't happen. And so with Teebo's lead ability, you have a lot of RNG chance, which is why it is not quite as stable as a Chirpatine, which is a Chirpa plus Emperor Palpatine attack. But if you don't have Chirpa, it's a pretty decent alternative. You do need a little bit of luck, though. So, what's going to be your overall group composition with this squad? So, obviously, your first one is going to be Teebo. He's going to be your leader. You also want him to have your second best speed mods. The reason for the speed mods is because Teebo also takes away turn meter with his basic and his special attack. His special attack can actually remove offense up that comes up on the B2 Rocket Trooper, and his basic ability will help to reduce turn meter of the B2 Rocket Trooper, which means that Emperor Palpatine can attack a little bit more. Now, a little bit of background on the B2 Rocket Trooper. He has a unique ability where every time he gets attacked, he'll gain 5% turn meter, and then you saw the other ability previously where if he counters, he can also gain 25% turn meter. So even if Emperor Palpatine is gaining 100% turn meter with Teebo's lead ability, there is still a chance that the B2 Rocket Trooper can attack, eventually of course, because he'll keep on gaining that 5% turn meter. Now, the next character is obviously going to be Emperor Palpatine. So this forms the foundation of your Teebotine. For Emperor Palpatine, in this particular squad, it is all about speed. You need Emperor Palpatine to be as fast as possible. Now, this is going to be, I'm going to kind of exaggerate the numbers a little bit here, just in order to kind of make sense. But it appears to be, and for actual numbers, that the B2 Rocket Trooper has about 215 speed. So if you can't beat 215 speed roughly with your Emperor Palpatine, chances are he's going to be a little bit slower than your B2 Rocket Trooper. Now, let's assume that Teebo's lead ability does not give you that extra 25% turn meter. So now Emperor Palpatine is only gaining that 90% turn meter. That means that Emperor Palpatine, with his speed, has to gain that extra 10% turn meter. If, for example, the B2 Rocket Trooper is considerably faster than your Emperor Palpatine, let's just make numbers here that for every 10% turn meter that Emperor Palpatine gains, the B2 Rocket Trooper will gain 15% turn meter, right? So now, in order to gain that 10% turn meter on Emperor Palpatine, B2 Rocket Trooper gets 15% turn meter. That just means that he has the ability to go faster. But you can't forget that if he doesn't get 100% turn meter, if Emperor Palpatine does not get 100% turn meter, all those B1 droids that are hanging around the B2 Rocket Trooper will also gain turn meter. And their speed, while not as fast as the B2 Rocket Trooper, is roughly the same. Which means that maybe, let's say the B1 droids look like they're maybe getting about 12% turn meter every time Emperor Palpatine has to gain 10. So you're going to keep on increasing the amount of turn meter that those other droids get if your Emperor Palpatine isn't fast enough. So let's say now that your Emperor Palpatine maybe has a speed of about 150, right? If your speed is 150 and the B2 Rocket Trooper is about 215, every time you gain 10% turn meter, the B2 Rocket Trooper may be gaining about 30. Now, there's actual calculations for this. I don't have them in front of me, so I'm just making up numbers here. But just to kind of give you the point, where Emperor Palpatine may gain 10% turn meter, but now all the other droids are gaining 30 to 35% turn meter. So now it's much harder to kind of keep that Emperor Palpatine attack sequence going. So for Emperor Palpatine, you need to try and get him as fast as possible so he can gain that 10% turn meter as fast as possible to reduce the turn meter gain of the B1 Rocket Trooper, or the B1 battle droids, and the B2 Rocket Trooper. Okay? So don't worry about anything else with regards to Emperor Palpatine. If you can get, for example, potency mods in order to make sure the shots apply better, that would be good. If you can get offense mods, you can do that. But the key is going to be speed. You need Emperor Palpatine as fast as possible. You're going to get attacks based on volume in this attack. Okay? So make sure that you realize that. The goal is going to be a high number of attacks in order to generate your damage, not necessarily the highest damage per attack. That's going to be your secondary focus, but I can't reiterate this enough. Main focus of Emperor Palpatine for a Teebotine attack, because there is a 50% chance that you're not going to get the turn meter. In order to get 100% turn meter, you need that speed. Speed on Emperor Palpatine. Now, this doesn't necessarily mean speed mods. If you have good speed mods, those work really well too. But at a minimum, you need your best speed secondary mods. So see what your speed secondary mods are. If your speed doesn't get too high, I would say that if your speed on Emperor Palpatine does not go over about 190, 195, this attack may be very difficult for you in order to kind of get going. Depending how long you've played at this point, most people have at least one set of really good mods with secondary speed. So this shouldn't necessarily be a problem. If your Teebo isn't fast enough, it's not going to kill the attack. But if your Emperor Palpatine isn't fast enough, that can potentially kill your attack. Okay, so make sure you judge whether or not this attack will work for you based on your Emperor Palpatine speed with your best mods, and you want to get at least 195. 190, 195 I think would be kind of the cutoff, and if your Emperor Palpatine doesn't reach that, then you may need to consider a different attack. Now, these two are going to be the foundation of your damage because of the lead ability, and then obviously Emperor Palpatine doing the brunt of the work. But who else are you going to add to the attack? Now, two of the most common tanks that people are farming, and they're because they are so versatile right now in this game, and they are really good, are Royal Guard and Stormtrooper Han. Now, Royal Guard's purpose is going to be your off-turn taunt. He taunts whenever somebody goes below 50%, so it's not an activating ability. He also has a special ability, which if you don't have Omega, then I would recommend doing it because it reduces the cooldown on how much he can give defense up, and defense up really helps in this fight in order just to kind of reduce the overall damage everyone takes. When you're looking at mods for this character, Royal Guard needs to be all about the survival, meaning high protection, high defense, high health. As much as you can, focus on all of the mods that give him survival, his ability to survive taking damage. He doesn't really need speed because he taunts off turn, and you don't want him fast because you don't want him gaining turn meter all that quickly. If he's taunting, you want that taunt to last as long as possible, meaning that you want it to actually be pretty slow. So you want to focus as much as you can on protection, health, defense. You can do a little bit on tenacity. There are a few debuffs that go on, but they're not anything terribly crucial. The health immunity may hurt a little bit on Royal Guard since he does have some healing with his unique. But again, focus on the health, the defense, and the protection. Same thing when it goes to Stormtrooper Han. Stormtrooper Han, you want survival mods as well in order to keep his survivability up. He has an active taunt, and the benefit of his taunt is that anytime he gets attacked, everybody else gains turn meter. So for Stormtrooper Han, you'll be using that taunt somewhat early in order to get those shocks off and keeping damage off of Emperor Palpatine, okay? And so with him, again, you want to try and keep him slow. He'll get that taunt off eventually. It's not anything major at the start of a fight. So don't think that you need, it's a little bit different than Arena. So if you're using Stormtrooper Han in Arena, you're trying to get him fast in order to get that taunt because every second matters. In a raid, remember that you have the benefit of retreating and restarting an attack. So you don't necessarily need to try and plan for all of these different RNG things that can happen and ruin your attack. We'll go through what you should look for in terms of RNG in your attacks, but just so you have an idea, for Stormtrooper Han in a raid, especially in Phase 3, you want him to be pretty slow, have a lot of health, a lot of protection, a lot of armor, so he can take those hits, and then remember that everyone will gain turn meter when he's taunting, so using him early is a pretty good idea to help getting those shots off. So now we have 4 of the members of the team. We have Teebo, we have Emperor Palpatine, we have Royal Guard, and we have Stormtrooper Han. Now comes the 5th. Now the 5th spot is really going to vary based on your roster. These 4, I would say, are the core for this attack. When you're looking at the 5th spot, there is a lot of variation. Now, I would recommend that a taunting tank would be the best one for this 5th spot, except for Sunfac or Gamorrean Guard. So you're looking at maybe a Chewie, Scarif Rebel Pathfinder, a Poe Dameron, not Sunfac, not Gamorrean Guard. And I'll show you why. I did an attack with the Teebotine with the Sunfac, and you'll see why I'm recommending not Sunfac and not Gamorrean Guard. If you don't have Sunfac or Gamorrean, or if you don't have any other taunting tanks, then you want to think about maybe a Barriss with the Zeta if you have that. That one is maybe a little bit more rare, but I wanted to throw that in there because she will heal your tanks as they're taking damage if they get crit, and it appears just from kind of eyeballing it that B2 has maybe about a 40% chance of critting. So Barriss's unique ability could help with this if you have it Zeta. Ewok Elder is the one that I ended up using in my final attack, which I'll show you. I played around with Captain Phasma as well. She's not as good. You would need to run RNG on her until she hits her Fusillade slow on everyone. So you would want that slow on B2, the B2 Rocket Trooper, and the B1s. The slow does help a little bit with this Teebo attack. The Victory March to give some turn meter at the beginning also helps in kind of rolling along the shocks, but still not as effective as the taunting tanks. Definitely would be your best choice, a Barriss Zeta or an Ewok Elder. Now, Ewok Elder is good because he has 2 potentials of reses. So he has the Revive res, he has the ability that reses, and then he also has the debuff removal with a chance of a res. So you have a few opportunities to res a tank after they die. And because of that, Ewok Elder is a pretty good fit in here. Not to mention that his basic attack gives 10% turn meter. So it speeds along some of your characters a little bit at the beginning. And that can also help to get those shocks off and everything moving along with this attack. Now, why am I saying that Sunfac and Gamorrean Guard are not going to be a good attack? So let me show you my attack here. And I'll kind of go through it with you and explain what's going on. You'll see some of the different RNG things coming on. Okay, so we have the attack starting. The Rocket Troopers go. Now, the first thing that I do with the attack, you'll see, is stun the guy that got the buff from B2. Now, the B2 Rocket Trooper gives a buff to a B1 droid, whether it's the commander or the little droids, the battle droids, that makes them use their special ability on their next turn. Otherwise, they just use their basic. Their specials can get pretty deadly, and so I want to try and avoid them having to go. Once your shocks are up, Emperor Palpatine's unique will deal them constant damage, and so eventually they'll get to the point where they have 1 hit point, and so you won't be able to stun them. So in the early phases, I use Royal Guard in order to stun the droids that has the buff in order to prevent it from using its special. Okay, and I'll go through some of the RNG things that I look for in my attack here in a minute, but just to kind of explain this as we're going along. Okay, so now Emperor Palpatine is starting. He gets the shock off on the first target. Okay, now it's Teebo's turn. You make sure he has stealth and just removes turn meter from the droid. When your character is stealth like just that, it's not a bad idea to hit the B2 Rocket Trooper because he can't necessarily counterattack, so you don't have to worry about taking extra damage. If you have a turn removal character like a Teebo, you may want to target the B1s that have the most turn meter in order to prevent them from attacking, or you can also remove turn meter from the B2. Whoever has the chance of dealing damage next is who I would aim for while you are still getting your shots. So, rolling along in the attack here. I tried to stun that B1, but it didn't work, but that's not a major killer for me. I wanted to remove turn meter from the B1 that had the buff in order to keep him stunned longer, so I don't have to worry about that. Got a stun off on one of the next B1s that are attacking. Now I have 3 shocks up. Stealth on Sunfac, so I attacked. Okay, so we're rolling along here pretty nicely. Removing turn meter with Teebo's to take less damage. Shock number 4 is up. shock number 5 is up, and shock number 6 is up. So now my Emperor Palpatine is gaining 90% turn meter. He'll have a chance to gain turn meter from Teebo's lead ability, and you see that Emperor Palpatine is kind of off to the races here. Okay, and this attack actually went pretty well. It might have been one that I had kept if I had a different tank, and you'll see why here coming up. Okay. So this is just how the attack will work in all of them. When you have a good run, this is what your attack should look like. Okay, that back AAT attack, but all of my tanks had a buff. They're also tanks, so they didn't really take any huge damage. He targeted Royal Guard instead of Stormtrooper Han, which was nice, since Stormtrooper Han's a little bit lower. Okay. So my starting percentage on this attack was 93.29. And so I'm approaching about 1.5% at this point. Actually more, yeah, just about 1.5% I'm getting at. And everything is actually rolling along really well. Okay, so here is where and I paused it here. Here is where everything goes wrong. Look at my scenario right now with my squad. Okay, Royal Guard has full health, little bit of protection left. Emperor Palpatine has full health, little bit of protection left. Teebo is still around. It's a good help just to have him there for turn meter removal off B2 Rocket Trooper at this point. Nothing that's really going to be critical for this attack, but it's nice to have him around. Sun Fac, full protection, almost full protection, full health, and taunting. So Emperor Palpatine is still really, really safe. But look what happens with the B1 battle droid now. Boom. B1 battle droid, who's gaining turn meter in this attack. Remember that in a Chirpatine attack, Emperor Palpatine is gaining 100% turn meter. The B1 battle droids won't go. So Sun Fac works well with the Chirpatine attack. In a Teebotine attack, the B1 battle droids still gain turn meter, and eventually they will go and they will attack the taunting target. If Sun Fac gets attacked, Sun Fac has a chance to counterattack. If he counterattacks, he will kill the B1 battle droid because Emperor Palpatine's unique has taken all of the B1 droids down to 1 hit point. And so Sun Fac just countered, killed a B1 battle droid. Now my Emperor Palpatine only has 5 shots to gain turn meter off of. So effectively, he went from 90% turn meter gain to now 75% turn meter gain. And if you remember the little bit of math we were doing before, right? If B2 Rocket Trooper was gaining 15% or 15% turn meter every time Emperor Palpatine was gaining 10% turn meter, right? Now Emperor Palpatine needs 25% turn meter. So B2 Rocket Trooper is gaining about 38% turn meter now. So that's a major difference between the times that Emperor Palpatine will attack now. B2 Rocket Trooper will gain about 38% turn meter. That completely changes the dynamic of this fight. You can't let those B1 Rocket Trooper or the B1 battle droids die. Same thing with Gamorrean Guard. Gamorrean Guard gains retribution when he taunts. That means if he gets attacked, he's going to counterattack. So if a B1 droid attacks Gamorrean Guard, he's going to kill that B1 droid, making his taunt pretty much useless because he's hurting Emperor Palpatine. And you'll see, as I continue the attack, I tried with Emperor Palpatine, but now the B1 droids are gaining turn meter faster. Emperor Palpatine is still kind of rolling along here. And now another B1 droid is dead. So now Emperor Palpatine is only gaining 60% turn meter. So I have to now wait for B2 Rocket Trooper to now summon 2 more droids. But if you look on the right now, 2 of the B1 droids have that special ability, and they're about to go. Meaning that they're probably going to end up hurting my attack quite a bit. Okay? So that's the end of the attack here. It did kind of go downhill from here really fast. I did reach over 2% though. So I started at 93.29 and ended up at 91.24. So I got my 2% turn meter, or my 2% damage. But if my Sunfac was a Chewy, a Poe Dameron, a Scarif Rebel Pathfinder, a different taunting tank, this attack would have gone on a lot longer. And so that's going to be kind of the critical part of your Teebotine attack, is making sure you know how to compose your squads. Okay, so again, your best bet with the squad is going to be a non counter attacking taunting tank. Okay, so again, Chewy, Poe, Scarif Rebel Pathfinder. I'm sure there's others that I'm missing, but those are the ones that you're looking at. Don't use Sunfac, don't use Gamorrean Guard. Okay, so if you don't have those, I don't have any other taunting tanks besides Sunfac. So I had to go with the second line of 5th spot characters, which was Ewok Elder for me, because I don't have a Zeta Barris right now. And like I said, I played around with Captain Phasma. She helped a little bit, not quite as good, so I went with Ewok Elder. Okay, so here's a look at what my eventual characters look like. Okay, so these were my mods on my Teebo. He got to about 184 speed. You do want to focus a bit on potency with your characters. I could get the potency a little bit higher if I sacrifice speed, but remember, speed is still really important with Teebo, because you do want to have the ability for him to go. His stealth gain gives him 100% turn meter, which basically gives him a free turn. And that's important because it reduces the cooldown of his special ability, which can remove that offense up off of B2 Rocket Trooper. So I got his speed up to 184. His potency is around 58. I obviously need to work a little bit more on my mods here, but this is coming a little bit more from a free-to-play perspective. I haven't done too much in terms of challenges. I usually buy my mods off of the mod shipments whenever a good one shows up. So that's how I've been kind of collecting them. So hopefully my mods are a little bit closer to what you have than maybe what a whale might have in terms of their really high speed. My Emperor Palpatine, I got to 206 speed. It's kind of a hodgepodge of my mods that have the best secondary speeds. Remember, it's all about speed with Emperor Palpatine, because you have to reduce the turn meter gain of those B1 droids, as well as that tank in the back. I didn't really mention it because you can't attack it. It just gains turn meter along with those B1 battle droids. So you also need to make sure your speed is high so that the tank in the back doesn't gain turn meter and then do its massive damage attack. Next is my Royal Guard. So my Royal Guard is slow, but you see that he has 28k health. He has 40k protection, almost 41k. He's a gear 10. So, and my Emperor Palpatine is also gear 10. So you don't necessarily need gear 11 in order to do all of these. Gear 10 is for a free-to-play player, for heroic AAT, to be reasonable damage in all of the phases. If you have the right squads, you want to make sure that they're level 80 and gear 10. That would be my recommended minimum for your characters for the squads that work in each phase. So any characters, if you're using Teebotine attack, level 80, gear 10. They don't have to be level 85. They don't have to be gear 11. Level 80, gear 10 will get the job done. Okay? Then after him is Han. So Stormtrooper Han, you see 20k health, 25 protection, speed is slow at 138. So he's all about kind of the survival. Then you have Sunfac, who I'm not using now, but you can see how awesome he is. He has been boosted up. He's gear 10, and you see almost 29k health, 54k protection. He has a lot of survival, and I had a better attack without him. Okay, so his counter attack can really ruin your attack, so you want to be kind of careful on that. So instead, I used my Ewok Elder. Now, Ewok Elder, if you're using him, you need to focus on speed as well. I did a comparison between my speed mods. If I use 4 of the basic speed mods, so you'll see that I'm running 1 dot and 2 dot speed mods here. I did a comparison with my speed secondaries. My speed ended up being higher with this setup in terms of the amount of speed gained. So Ewok Elder versus Teebo, if you have this squad, is a little bit of a debate in terms of who you want to be faster. Um, so it's kind of up to you which one you want. I would go a little bit faster with Ewok Elder if you can. I didn't have the mods for it though, so I ended up the most speed gain I had was with Ewok Elder with this setup. It's just that Teebo ended up still being faster. Okay, so let's go ahead and take a look at the attack then. Okay, and there's a few restarts here just to kind of show you how this process ends up kind of working out. Okay, actually, before we do that, I realized I forgot to put in something here. So let me go ahead and bring this up. On the fly corrections. I forgot to tell you about what the RNG things are that you're looking in your Teebotine attack. Okay, so what you're looking for with your Teebotine without TFP. So I didn't put TFP in that 5th spot because he changes the way that you would attack. I'm finishing up my TIE Fighter pilot right now. Once I get him, I'll be able to show you an attack with him. His ability with Emperor Palpatine kind of changes the entire dynamic of the fight. But looking at this particular setup, the things that you're going to be looking for are how much does Emperor Palpatine gain stealth, and also that goes along with how much does B2 counter. Okay, so you want to reduce all of that extra damage. Both aspects of that kind of work hand in hand. Like I mentioned before, there's a 15% chance that he's going to counterattack. So you want to try and see how RNG kind of works with you on that. The second thing is Emperor Palpatine's resist to shock. Remember that you have the benefit, unlike Arena, to retreat and start again. Focus on Emperor Palpatine really needs to be speed. So don't worry about your potency. If you can get potency, that's fine. But you need to focus on speed, and as a result of speed, sometimes potency gets sacrificed. So if your shot gets resisted, restart your attack. Like you saw with my Sunfac attack, he basically got off the shocks on all 6 droids every time he went. So that's what you're kind of looking for. If maybe one gets resisted after the 5th shock, you maybe can tolerate that and still move. But if your first couple don't end up hitting, definitely if your first doesn't hit, then you want to restart. Okay. The next thing is the initial damage takers. The droids will likely be the first characters to go in your squad, so they're going to be attacking. You don't want Emperor Palpatine to take any of the damage. Okay, so you want ideally the damage to focus on Royal Guard, Stormtrooper Han, your 5th tank if you have it, or if you have Ewok Elder, you'd prefer it to be on Teebo rather than Ewok Elder. So who was taking damage in that initial volley of attacks is definitely important. So you want to make sure you focus on that and make sure your Emperor Palpatine is one that doesn't take damage. The next one is Royal Guard's stuns. You really want him to stun the characters that are getting that buff from the B2 Rocket Trooper, and so his ability to hit his stun is important. Again, his mods need to focus on protection, health, and defense. You need to increase his survival. You can retreat and start again if his stun doesn't hit properly, so use the retreat function as your friend. It'll really, really help you. And then the last thing is turn meter removal by Teebo. Now, you don't need him to remove turn meter on every single attack, but every now and then there's going to be kind of that crucial attack where maybe a B1 droid is about to go and he's not stunned and he's about to use his special, and you want to remove that turn meter so he doesn't attack. And so if you can remove the turn meter, great. If he doesn't, then he may do his special and it can ruin your attack, so then you want to restart. Same thing with the B2 Rocket Trooper. If you can remove his turn meter and make him go less, that's great. That's more time that you can attack him. But if he doesn't, it may not necessarily be the worst thing. You have to kind of gauge each scenario individually. Make sure that you keep track of what your starting percentage is, so you know how much 2% is, because most guilds have a 2% goal for their 50 players in order to reach that 100%. Okay, so for this attack, those are going to be the different things that you're looking at. Okay, so going back to the attack now. So Emperor Palpatine took a little bit of a hit here. Wasn't the worst thing, but then Royal Guard got resisted. Okay, so that retreat scenario. Okay, so don't be afraid to retreat. It's all about making sure that you're getting the RNG that you need in order to reach your 2%. And just as a heads up, I don't finish this attack all the way through because I have a Chirpatine, and I get better damage, so I didn't want to do less damage for my guild, but I take it close to the end and then I'll kind of explain what would be the next procedures afterwards. In that last one, you saw that Emperor Palpatine's shot got resisted, so immediate restart. Okay, so we're rolling along here. A little bit of a lag there, but see the damage was focused so far on Teebo, Royal Guard. Emperor Palpatine is up. Need to fix my mirroring there, and I got the first shot up. Okay, so now it's Teebo's turn. No one is at great turn meter, so I focused on the B2. Ewok Elder was stealth, so I attacked B2 also. Stunned the guy with the special. I used Taunt by Stormtrooper Han, which gave Ewok Elder full turn meter. Wasn't stealth, didn't attack B2. Stealth this time, attacked B2. Okay, so you'll kind of see that pattern there. Emperor Palpatine went, got the second shock off. Okay, you have an option here of using defense or stun. Either one will work. I like stunning in order to reduce the damage from a particular B1 droid, but either way would work. Managed to reduce turn meter on the B2. Got the force shock. Okay, keeping that guy stunned a little bit longer, so reduces turn meter. So I'm at 4 shocks right now. And so, since Emperor Palpatine is going to get his 5th and 6th up soon, hopefully, I used my defense up. Now, that was my 5th shot, and he missed. You could potentially restart that. I decided to kind of go ahead with it and just see how it played out, but I got my 5th and 6th immediately. So, I pretty much started rolling here. No real concern, everything is going pretty smoothly. Okay, so you see that Emperor Palpatine is just kind of wailing away. Teebo used his special to move the offense up, so whenever B2 will attack, it's not going to be affected. See the damage kind of just piling on at this point. All the B1s are essentially down, so they're low on hit points. So now, even if my other characters don't have stealth, I can't attack the other B1s because they don't have any health. They're going to die and ruin the shock rotation. Okay, so all attacks are now going to be focused directly on B2. I can't stun anybody with Royal Guard, again, because they don't have any hit points because of Emperor Palpatine. Okay, so Emperor Palpatine is just kind of rolling along. Okay, and you see the damage still compiling. Royal Guard is still really in good shape, and Stormtrooper Han was at close to half health, and so I healed with Ewok Elder. Ewok Elder healed, but then the tank in the back shot, so Stormtrooper Han died. So now I don't have a taunt up yet. So what I'm going to do now is continue with Emperor Palpatine. As soon as Emperor Palpatine gets below 50%, Royal Guard is going to taunt. So this is one of those little risky situations here. You can still move along pretty nicely with this attack, but now that Royal Guard is taunting, everything is kind of back to normal. Okay, and when Ewok Elder goes again, he'll be able to res Stormtrooper Han. I'm going to stop it here, though. Okay, so Ewok Elder got ability blocked. I've already done more than 3% damage, so I'm well over the 2% threshold at this point with this attack. Now, because Ewok Elder was ability blocked, he can't res Stormtrooper Han. That could change some of the little sequences of things going on. So maybe if you're comfortable with this attack, you would restart and try to get a little bit better RNG. Maybe Stormtrooper Han wouldn't die. Maybe you don't have the ability block on Ewok Elder, and so all of that, Emperor Palpatine would have more health because he wouldn't need to go below 50% to trigger Royal Guard's taunt, right? So there are some RNG things that maybe didn't go my way in this attack, but it's still over 3% in terms of damage. But take a look at the scenario right now. Thing of critical importance, okay? Royal Guard is definitely taunting, okay? So the fact that he's taunting is good because he's going to be covering Emperor Palpatine's attack. But there is going to be the chance of an AoE coming from B2 Rocket Trooper relatively soon. But look at the second droid from the left, okay? It's a little bit hard to see, especially if you have a lot of dots added on the characters, but for right now, it's not too bad. But that second droid from the left, he's at maybe about 75% turn meter with that special ability. The first droid from the left is at maybe about 60% turn meter, okay? Both of them have their special abilities, meaning that they're going to do a lot of damage. When you're looking to see what to do with your characters and who to attack, okay, you may need to consider moving forward attacking those B1 droids and kind of just reducing the turn meter hit, the turn meter gain by Emperor Palpatine, because that is going to be superior to having the B1 droid using their special and killing off characters. Okay, so keep those kind of things in mind moving forward. That you want to make sure you're paying attention to the turn meter, especially of the B1 droids that have that special buff from the B2 Rocket Trooper that makes them use their special. It can't be dispelled. That's why they now added that little lock mechanism on there. It's a non-dispellable buff, meaning that the next time they go, they will use their special. They have no hit points, essentially, because of Emperor Palpatine's unique, and you can't stun him with Royal Guard. Okay, so that's going to be the critical part of this. Make sure you're looking at all the different little aspects of it in order to make sure that you're getting a good attack in. Okay? So that's it for this attack. I hope you have an idea now about how the Teebotine attack works. If you have any questions, please post them in the description. Please check out the website and like this video if you liked it. Please subscribe to the channel, and if not, I will see you next time.